The 12 Labours of Heracles is a story that many of us have likely heard of before, as it is the story most commonly linked to the hero. It also happens to be the story that most of these horrendous movie adaptations attempt to tell. What we don't hear about too often are the challenges that he faced along the way and thereafter, what many consider to be the minor labours of Heracles. Before we delve any deeper into the video, and I see someone in the comments ask me, Why are you saying Hercules like that? That's weird. Heracles is his Greek name and Hercules is his Roman name. They are pretty much the same person, just two different ways of saying the name. We got it? Good, great, let's move on. If there's one thing that we have learnt from all of the stories covering Heracles, it's that him and Centaurs don't exactly have the best relationship. So it's no real surprise that several of these minor challenges involved killing more Centaurs. During his fourth labour, before finding the Erymanthian boar, Heracles was invited to the home of the centaur Pholus to rest and drink some wine. Upon smelling the wine, a tribe of Peloponnesian centaurs attacked Heracles, leaving him with no choice but to fight back and kill most of them. The ones that did survive fled to the south, where they would be given refuge by Poseidon. The next centaur on Heracles' so-called hit list was Eurytion, who, if we're being completely honest, probably had it coming. Eurytion forced the king Dexamenos to give him his daughter as a bride. Stealing brides was a fairly common theme amongst centaurs. The king, however, was a good friend of Heracles, and upon asking for his assistance, Heracles did not hesitate to club the centaur to death and free the king's daughter. Now, arguably one of the most famous centaurs killed by Heracles was Nessus, who attempted to kidnap his second wife Deianira when he promised to carry her across a river. When they did cross the river, he then attempted to violate Deianira. Heracles, then hearing the screams of his wife, shot Nessus with an arrow dipped in the Hydra's poisonous blood. However, in his dying breath, he convinced Deianira to take some of his poisoned blood to make a love potion, ensuring that her husband would remain faithful, which would eventually lead to the death of Heracles when she sprinkled the blood on his clothing. Whilst we are still on the topic of Deianira, we move on to the story where Heracles competed for her hand in marriage against the river god Achelous. He challenged Heracles to a wrestling match, with the victor taking the princess as their wife. As expected, Heracles won this match, but during the competition he ripped off one of the god's horns, which would form the cornucopia, or the horn of plenty, a symbol of abundance and nourishment. Achelous himself is described in several different forms, with one of those being a bull with the head of a bearded man, almost like a bull-shaped centaur, so it's no real surprise that he left the encounter with a scar or two, but at least he didn't die. Now, Heracles didn't just wrestle gods, he also wrestled their enormous children, specifically the giant Antaeus, one of Poseidon's numerous offspring. Located in the region of Libya, whenever a traveller crossed Antaeus' path, he would make them wrestle him. Upon defeating them, he would use their skulls to construct a roof on his father's temple. As the son of Poseidon and Gaia, Antaeus possessed a strength that was unmatched by anyone, and no one could ever contest him. That is until he made the mistake of challenging Heracles. Athena advised Heracles to lift the giant off the ground, severing his connection to his mother. He would then be vulnerable enough for Heracles to defeat him. Just as Athena predicted, Antaeus was indeed weakened when he was lifted off the ground, allowing Heracles to crush the giant and kill him. This, however, wasn't the only giant that Heracles encountered and killed. When Heracles was in Thrace, he fought the giant Alcyoneus, who could not be killed when he was in his home city. So Heracles then snuck up on the giant when he fell asleep. He then unleashed a volley of arrows, followed by a severe clubbing. But still, the giant could not be killed. Heracles then dragged the giant beyond the walls of his city, where the wounds would become fatal. On a more light-hearted note that doesn't involve killing something, on his travels Heracles came across the two sons of Oceanus, known as the Cercopes. Acmon and Achelous were known in western Anatolia as mischievous thieves, often described as monkey-like in their movement. They were captured by Heracles when they attempted to rob him. However, their quick wit and funny jokes did amuse Heracles, enough that he would set them free unharmed. Though this good fortune wouldn't last too long, as they eventually pissed off Zeus and he turned them into literal monkeys, or just statues depending on the tale. The last minor labour that we'll be covering today is the Caucasian eagle. The eagle found in the Caucasus Mountains, where every day it would swoop down and eat the liver of Prometheus as punishment for giving fire to mankind. In order to stop the never-ending torture of Prometheus, Heracles shot the eagle out of the sky and broke the chains that bound Prometheus, freeing him from the cliff that he was cursed to spend eternity on. So I guess today we've learnt that you probably shouldn't challenge Heracles to a wrestling match, or try and steal his wife. We've also learnt that if you're a giant or a centaur and you happen to cross his path, you probably won't live to tell the tale. There are so many more of his adventures to discuss that there will most likely be a few more videos on Heracles and all of the things that he killed, sometime in the near future. Feel free to share your thoughts and ideas with me in the comments below. As always, I've been your host, Mythology and Fiction Explained.